Appeared. Hi, my name is Josh. Welcome back to Fantastic Fantasy. And I was, excuse me, I was scrolling through IGTV and I saw this video, and it's flat earthers versus scientists. I know this is a very played out trope, but there was a bunch of stuff I wanted to say that because I'm currently in the process of getting to college and I love science and I love the idea of just of challenging opposite opinions. I thought it'd be a great idea to just give it a shot. So, flat earthers versus, and what's said here is great. So, flat earthers versus goddamn scientists. Let's see. To be clear here, I do not believe in the flat earth theory. I think it is bullshit. But of course, there are always things that could disprove me, or let's just see how it goes. I'm always down to try something new.
Earth in a globe, right, on a ball, it has a beginning and an end point. That's it. Say that's not the end of it. Say there were land masses found beyond what we're told is the end pole of the Earth.
Lab bite. Agree or disagree. Agree to disagree. Scientists versus flat earthers.
Very good. Yeah, I'm Matt. Yeah, I'm Connor. Nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you too. Cheers. Yeah, cheers, man.
Should I have the bet? Okay, so I guess this is how they're gonna score it. There's the flat, is the earth flat, blah blah blah, we already know. Obviously it's round, baby. But let's see what he has to say. Also, I guess this is the way they're gonna score it. You have strongly disagree and strongly agree and strongly disagree. I guess those are obviously how they're gonna format it, so they'll probably like slide the beer here or slide the beer here, something like that, I believe. So yeah, I feel like this is a great way, because they obviously have great synergy already. So let's give it a continue. I forgot that I have the marker on. Let's give it a continuation. Strongly. Oh, agree.
Flat is probably the most probable. We cannot prove motion. Without motion, none of it works. And second, obviously being the major one, is that we can't detect curvature. The globe model is a little bit problematic.
There's plenty of experiments that show the curvature of the Earth. I happen to live by the coast. I've got a really expansive view out onto the Earth.
Yeah, there are hundreds of experiments that can tell you that the Earth is curved. Pilots experience it. Even if you go to a coast, if you go to a high altitude place, if you go on top of a building, let's say you go to the Empire State Building in New York or the Freedom Tower, you can take a pen and run it across it. And since the pen is flat, or take a ruler, you'll see the curvature of the Earth. Also, if you look out into the horizon, like he's gonna say, he lives on the Atlantic, if you see ships pass by, you'll see them dip under the horizon. To the point where it's like, okay, here's the horizon. Let's just imagine here's the horizon, and a ship is coming here. You see the ship. Once it passes the horizon, it passes down. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah. Once it passes the ship, it passes down past the horizon, which means the Earth is curved. Plus, on top of that, if you go, there are multiple videos that are not. A lot of people argue that okay, when you're jumping, that you always use a fisheye lens, so the glass distorts. But there is 100% non-distortion glass. That's used on phone screens all the time. Gorilla Glass, obviously. So to say that there is no definitive proof that the Earth is curved is inaccurate, and it goes against all the the physics and the knowledge itself. And there's a whole multitude of other things that you can go into. One being, you can see the curvature.
Atlantic, and I can see the ships, and I can see them dip down over the horizon. So I've physically seen the curvature for myself.
He's so angry.
You could also get into a high altitude jet and actually physically see the curvature of the Earth. Pilots see it all the time.
A lot of physicists will completely disagree with you. Do you remember when Felix Baumgartner did the jump, the Red Bull jump, right? He'll be the first to tell you that they were using a fisheye lens in the camera because.
Yeah, see, I just mentioned it. But even if you use that's only for a very wide focal length, so you can see as much as possible. But even if you saw a fish, even if you had a fisheye lens, if you straighten the image and you undistort it, because there is technology to do that nowadays, there will still be a curvature. There will still be a curvature. And I know this is a played out trope, but come on, it's always fun to see other opinions.
His altitude, it would have been impossible to see curvature. And I agree with you, if you're in a jet or a bomber, you may see a curve to the Earth when you're high. However, that's because you're in glass shaped like this. Plenty of pilots who fly passenger jets will tell you that it's flat the whole way around.
Yeah,
This is
give me one
hard
second.
one
I'm sorry.
science.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen a couple of experiments,
certainly
and you've read things that aren't necessarily by the consensus of scientists.
Sorry about the cut there. I know the audio wasn't syncing up to the mouths talking. I don't know why particularly, but hopefully it works out.
Something like Occam's razor is say, what of these two different things requires us to have the least amount of assumptions?
Stationary and flat versus globular and moving, right?
Globular.
I'm looking around. Least amount of assumptions in my right? I'm looking around. I feel like I'm standing still. I don't feel like anything is moving. So the least amount of assumptions in my
Yeah, what? No. I get that argument, that's something you convey. But first of all, that's not evidence-based. There's no contextual evidence to prove that, okay, we're not moving because I feel like I am still. A good example is this. Okay, if you're traveling in a car, and then you're traveling 70 miles per hour, you don't feel the 70 miles per hour. You know that you're moving because your other senses detect that you're moving. You can see, you can hear, you can feel the vibration. But you still are able to compensate for the 70 miles per hour. Now, imagine that surface is even larger. The distribution of weight is perfect. And first of all, the Earth is kind of an oval shape. It's not a perfect circle. distribute it that way properly and have like the best suspension system in the universe. Make sure that each bump in the road is compensated for properly. You're not gonna know that you're moving. It's a square box with no light, and so 3 out of your 4 senses right there are just null. You're not gonna know that you're moving, although you are. So the premise to say, his premise saying that, oh, because I feel still means that I am still, is completely inaccurate. I want to see how they're also going to use gravity, because gravity plays an integral role in if Earth is flat or not. Because if it is, holy crap, oh, we're all screwed.
Yeah. Based on accusation is that I am still.
Oh, the moon landing. Oh, this is what's controversial. Strongly disagree.
A man actually went traveled to try and find the actual telemetry data of the moon landing happening, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, 700 boxes.
Okay, so if you don't know what telemetry data is, I'm trying to break it down as simple and as specific as possible. Telemetry data is like data. What they're trying to figure out is the data for distance, the data for how the rocket ship was launched, all things like that. So a guy, I think back in it was somewhere from I think it was from the 90s to something, and the guy tried to go and look for the telemetry data, look for all the data of how this ship landed, and he couldn't find it. They said that the tapes had gone missing, and of course I understand completely why that would be suspicious. Oh, 700 boxes of tapes are missing, but you also got to understand these tapes back in the 60s were magnetic based. Magnetic tapes corrode, they degrade over time, and let's just see what Flat Earther over here has to say. But I get the suspicion, but you also have to consider other factors.
Of magnetic tapes, telemetry data is gone. They have no idea where it is.
Actually, it's very, very hard to keep magnetic tape. You're not trying to seriously say Led Zeppelin didn't record Led Zeppelin 1 because that tape no longer exists anymore.
We're literally talking about supposedly one of the greatest ever feats of mankind.
What, the Led Zeppelin album? I agree.
Yes, literally the greatest feats of mankind. Man first walking on the moon. Those tapes. It's not that they're saying these tapes rotted away. These tapes were damaged. They don't know where they are. Yeah, well, they did it as if they never exist. 700 boxes of tapes. I mean, you could call it an anomaly if you want to.
But it's not evidence. If someone comes in and says, I've seen a fairy in my garden, right? Yeah. I don't have to look under every single blade of...
I love the distinction here and the separation between, okay, I get it, but it's not evidence. So there's a certain premise to do in writing. There's something very special, not very special, but in argumentative essays, and kids pay attention because argumentative writing and even discussion play an integral role as a person. So I love argumentative writing. I hate writing, but I love the fact that I get to argue with people. It's so fun to screw with them. But in writing, you have your point. So you do your introduction, like let's just say this is an essay. You do your introduction, then you have like let's say it's 5-paragraph essay. Introduction, 2 body paragraphs discussing your point. Okay. Then comes the rubber. One being, when discussing something, always keep a level head. If that person gets angry, you always seem like you're on the winning side. Number 2, always accept their argument. But once you accept it, you make them feel as if they're being heard and listened to. Thus, their ears become a bit more open. Once you accept it, refute it. Say, however, I can disprove this. By saying that, you're able to shut down their argument and give them no claim. They can't use anger against you because you are not acting ignorant. You are accepting their premise and thesis, but finding a way to scientifically, or based upon the topic, finding a way to disprove it in a calm, mannerly fashion, which makes them look like the ass. It's just a cool tip. Oh my god. Let's just go from here.
Say there were land masses found beyond what we're told is the end pole of the Earth. You don't want to keep those public knowledge because there's resources here that can be taken advantage of by people in high positions of power.
This is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard. First of all, Earth is running out of resources. Let's get that straight. So calm down, buddy. Earth is running out of resources, running out of gold, diamonds, all this shit. Second of all, if we were hunting for these new islands and new resources that are surrounded by some ice cap, what sense does it make to then switch to solar energy? What sense does it make to switch to renewable energy? Because in this position, this 1% of the world, if you, from what we understand, they don't give a crap about what happens there. They die in the end. But why would we be heading towards renewable energy if there are multitude others of resources? Even if, yes, you can make money from resources, but that still has that industry still has to rely on people. That's what makes capitalism a bit more fair than communism. But I'm not going to say that. But of course, capitalism has its own problems. Again, because of the 1% exists, that's why capitalism has a problem. But let's get back.
What do you do?
But who are these people in these high positions of power? Because we've had generations since then. And what are the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans and the South Koreans and the Australians?
I would say,
what are they doing?
I would say when it gets to a certain point, they're all involved. China's all these space agencies, every single one of these space agencies are doing the same thing. In fact, if you look at China's work, it is some of the worst faking of space that's ever happened. You look at what they're producing and saying is real space travel, and it's people in pools. They're not in space. You can see bubbles coming out of their helmets. It's a joke.
It's a joke. I'm very confused. Now, see, he's losing his ground here.
Oh. Newton's laws, they've been unbelievably successful in describing the world and predicting things and bringing us new technology. It's not that they're wrong, they're just not fully described yet. Think of knowledge as being this big building up of a pyramid of knowledge. You never achieve the truth. You're just adding layer upon layer as you get nearer and nearer and nearer and nearer the truth.
Right, well, Newton was categorically wrong.
How?
I admire your optimism.
Yeah.
However, I don't feel like those gaps will ever be filled. I don't think the pyramid to the truth will ever be finished.
You don't trust the bottom layers. And therefore, anything that you see, you're almost having to start from scratch. Which is essentially why you almost have a BC style knowledge of things like flat Earth, because you're going right back to the beginning and ignoring.
Yo, that was such a burn. He says, nah, you're not, bro. Let's get it straight. You ain't got 1900s. You ain't got 1800s. There's not even the 1500s. You got a BC knowledge before Common Era. Because first of all, it's not before Christ anymore, because first of all, that's culturally insensitive, and technically the Common Era did not start when Christ was born. That's a whole religious aspect. You can believe what you please to believe, but the term used by scientists now for saying BC is actually BCE and ADE. And you have, so BCE for this context is really just before Common Era, before the Industrial Revolution, before society started to settle, before settlements were built from native and nomadic tribes around the world. That's what BCE is, before the Common Era, before we had cities, before we had societies. Before we had establishment of gods and this and not gods, but before we had establishment of a. I think you get the context here. Let's just continue the video before it gets too long.
It is archaic.
No, it's not. It's certainly not archaic, because up until NASA was founded and we were shown so-called proof, this argument has never died. The flat Earth has been a contender in this argument between globe and Earth for a long time.
It's been fringe for 2,500 years.
No, it has not. That's absolutely not true.
We're both probably skeptics, but my form of skepticism is a scientific skepticism.
I would actually disagree and say that my form of skepticism is a scientific skepticism, because it follows the scientific method, natural science. One of my favorite physicists ever was Richard Feynman, and he described science in a fantastic way. He said, the steps of science is that we observe, then we guess. That's it. It's a guess. We use nature and experimentation to either verify or nullify that guess. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's it. That's what Richard Feynman said, and I totally agree with it.
Yo, look, he's right. The flat earther guy is correct. But then he's contradicting what he's saying. Literally, this entire discussion, especially when he brought in Feynman, became a paradox of his own point. He's saying, okay, it's a complete contradiction. He's saying, okay, natural science. Then go look for your own eyes. If you want to follow natural science, you go look for your own eyes. Do that. And then you know what? Let that natural science speak. Let Feynman's words really dig in. And you'll see that the earth is curved. The earth is curved. I love how he just contradicted himself completely. It's hilarious. I know this video's going over a long time.
If Richard Feynman's your hero, he's absolutely my hero.
So we agree there.
I've just finished, surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman.
Okay, yeah.
He understands that science is this building up slowly of knowledge. To be honest, he would be horrified at your take on science. Particularly how you just put it there, because it's not quite right. He is a fantastic advocate of science, and he would of course be horrified by flat Earth. He genuinely would.
Oh god, he took that to heart. That hurt him. YouTube is wrong since flat Earth videos.
Anytime I talk about something controversial, they will make sure that they put an article under my video to say what the opposite of what I'm saying is true. Why would you need to censor this kind of information?
So I have a weird place in this. Since I'm slowly starting YouTube, I don't have the greatest production. I don't have this. I don't have that. But the idea that YouTube can censor certain things is a restriction of freedom of speech. And while I do understand that it is more moral to, it's immoral to censor people, but it's also understandable to censor false information. I am very conflicted, and I could not bring myself to take a stance on this topic, because it has a very strong political aspect, because then it leads into, is this freedom, is this restriction, are we being controlled by corporations? And in some aspects we are, but at the end of the day, is this okay? So that's
if it's so clearly wrong.
Let's face it, if we were talking about a much more offensive idea, if we look at an example, would you be happy with YouTube downplaying Nazi videos?
It's a different, I think we're talking about something completely different when we're talking about someone promoting Nazism, someone promoting hate towards a group of people, whereas when we're discussing things like flat Earth, we're discussing ideas.
Do you know what? And I do agree with you. I am going to shift it a little bit over here, because the freedom of speech, I think, is really important.
There we go. The person opposite me is brainwashed. Okay, this is strongly disagreeing.
Sorry,
But that's it.
Yeah, sorry.
I
would say this because
why the scientist was being nice to him, because I love this. I think this is a great point. Saying, so everyone says, oh, flat earthers are brainwashed, they're dumb. First of all, they're not. Flat earthers can be smart. They're genuine people like you and me. They have their opinions, and everything's okay with that. The problem is, people say, oh, because flat earthers have a stigma behind them of being insane. People say, oh, they're brainwashed. In reality, they're not. Everyone has their own opinions and have the right to that opinion. Everyone understands what they want to believe. If you disagree with something, then you won't want to hear it. It's built into our psychology as a form of survival and blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into that. But saying that they're brainwashed is inaccurate, because they've gathered their own information. They may have been saying you're brainwashed means to be influenced. Either it means to be influenced by force by someone else or something else. They are not being brainwashed. They just have their own opinions and own view on the world, and everything's okay with that. It's just this view contradicts science, and we've as a society have tried to focus on the scientific aspects of life, and contradicting that poses a problem.
I actually say that everybody is brainwashed to a degree. I would say that I am brainwashed to a degree. Most of the time, we exist in some form of an echo chamber, whether we want to or not.
What you should be trying to do is be very, very open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brains fall out. I mean, that's kind of it. And as a scientist, you want people to come along and disprove your theories.
Challenge
I think,
you, for sure.
not even just challenge your theories, but to disprove them. I think that that's the most exciting thing in science. You may have belonged to a tribe, but I don't think you've been brainwashed by that tribe. I just think that you've rejected what I would call normal science, and you're going for
See, that's a
something
great
else
argument,
that's
and you
not
accept it and rebut it.
actually science. But I don't.
Right, to you. Yeah, no, I agree. That's fine. That's fair.
Also fine.
I love the same thing. Respectful towards each other, which is great. Usually it's just yelling. Would you go for another drink with you? Hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, why not? It's been a good conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely. As you should always test your ideas against someone else.
Absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
I see as you as a person, and like, I'm sure we'd have a great time out and like enjoy each other's company.
For sure. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. See? Yeah, so check out Lab Bible. Honestly, that was a great video. I appreciated the synergy. There was usually with these videos, there's just a bunch of yelling and screaming, and that's not how you operate when it comes to these topics. I love this. This was great. So this is the end of the video. Thank you. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, I don't really care. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. If today's your birthday, happy birthday. Have a great day. I'm gonna try to stay consistent with YouTube videos. And I do have a cool workout science anime video coming out, so stay tuned for that. All right, see you. Peace.